Welcome everybody. We're going to get back into our Amazon Q GenAI Assistant tonight. And I thought the first thing we could do is, I have the wrong project open. Give me a sec. I think it's this one. Yeah. All right. So, if you remember, we left off, I've been writing up some README files and things like that, and we published this into GitHub. And we have a to-do list here. We worked through a bunch of things, and I said last week that maybe we could start taking some of this content some of the configuration, and see if we could figure out how to build out some CloudFormation templates for it. Because if you remember up till this point, what we've been doing is using the console to set up all of the roles and everything. So as we were going through the creation process of our Q Assistant, we were just saying, hey, create this for us. And I think that's good for what we're doing here. It's a great way to just quickly test things out and see how it works and all that great stuff. However, if we're going to build this out in a sort of real environment, generally we would want this stuff scripted if we could. Sorry, I messed my, you were here last week, I messed my streaming setup up. Messed it up, yeah. And I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I did wrong, so I'm kind of multitasking here at the same time. So I was just saying that we've got everything done through the console, which is great for sort of demos and stuff like that, but how do we take it from just console setup to something that we could codify and track in a change management, or not a change management system, but like a version control system, like what we normally do on the streams is GitLab, right? So I thought today we could kind of look at some of the resources that have been created already as we were building everything out. When we created our original Q business application, it comes with it. We created an application role. We created our first data source. I'll tell you a little bit more about this in a second, but we created our first data source, which is our web crawler. And the web crawler has its own role. And then when we deployed the web experience, it has its own role. So I'm just thinking, could we codify those? And in addition to the roles that we've got so far, we were looking at some of the other possible data connectors that we could look at, right? And we had talked about, you can see at the bottom of this list here, that we had talked about the possibility of a Slack crawler and a Jira crawler. And I'm just realizing again, some of this is not sized properly. Let's just fix that. Yeah, that's better, right? Okay, so we talked about a Slack crawler and a Jira crawler. I cheated a little bit. I've been working on the Slack crawler today. And the reason I did that was I wanted to see how it worked with Secrets Manager and what we had to do there. There's quite a bit of setup that you have to do in Slack itself. You have to create a Slack application. You need to assign it certain things, certain permissions, both user permissions and bot permissions. So we'll have a look at that, and it's not something that I wanted to do live on the stream. There's some stuff that I don't really want to share there. So I set the Slack bot up ahead of time. And I maybe got ahead of myself a little bit. And again, there's some client tokens and things like that I'm a little leery of in the stream. So I thought, I could get some of this set up ahead of time, and it did actually work. So I thought I'd walk you through that so that you could see what I ended up doing, and then maybe we could decide where to go from there. Okay. So that's kind of what I thought we would do. So let me show you first off where we are in the actual GenAI assistant. So let me change my screen, and this is the problem. I don't have my little shortcuts all set up for this. So we'll jump over here. Yeah, we'll just get this resized. So I'm in the demo account again. Resize this to fit. There we go. Okay. So this is our demo app. And this is our original crawler. And I've got these set up just now on demand. There's no sense, really, any requirement for us to have the crawlers active all the time. And you'll notice what I did was I created this. This is our new guy. And I'll show you what it's doing, actually. We'll go to settings. Okay, a couple things I wanted to point out. Oops, click there, go to settings, and we got our team ID. And as part of the crawlers, connectors, whatever you want to call them, there's an identity crawler. And you'll notice I have no ACL turned on, and in here somewhere else, when I set this up, I'll show you. Essentially what this does is it's a way to provide authorization so that if I'm having a conversation with Amazon Q, that I only have access to the data that I'm supposed to have access to. I turned it off for my little test. I just wanted to see how it would work. Okay. I thought maybe we could go back through this and look at how that the identity crawler piece is configured. Because if we'll have a look in the documentation, I didn't think that I really saw a lot of information in the docs around setting up the identity crawler, which led me to believe, does it? That's so typical. Hold on. Let me log back in. I kind of thought maybe that meant that the identity crawler was set up on our behalf, but I couldn't quite understand some of the documentation. So we can go back and have a look at that. You know, it's funny, I wrote in the documentation and everything, the to-do list, that we needed to use Secrets Manager. So for the Slack configuration, when you create your Slack bot on the other side, there's a bunch of OAuth tokens and everything that get created, and it asks you for two pieces of information to set this up. You're going to need your Slack workspace ID, and then you're going to need your, what is it now? Your OAuth token. I can't remember if it's the user OAuth token or the bot OAuth token. Both of those get created when you create the app, and that's what's stored in the Secrets Manager. And like I mentioned, you know, I'm kind of like, yeah, I understand that you want to keep this stuff separate from the configuration. And I wrote down that we've got to set up Secrets Manager and all that great stuff. But after the fact, I started thinking about it, and I'm like, Secrets Manager to me seems like a little overkill. Because here's what I mean. From my perspective, the biggest benefit of Secrets Manager is that if you're using Secrets Manager for something like RDS, it will automatically rotate those secret credentials for you on a regular basis, right? I think it defaults actually to 7 days. It'll rotate it. You can adjust that. That's great, right? But for something like this, I don't know. I'm sure you can regenerate your tokens from Slack, but you're not going to regenerate those tokens every 7 days. At least I wouldn't think so. So Secrets Manager to me seems like a little bit of overkill for this. It's a shame that we can't decide where we want to put this authentication information. Why can't I just store it as a parameter, a value in the parameter store in SSM? I could use an encrypted key. I can't remember what they call it, but we've got the simple key and then an encrypted key. So I could encrypt it using KMS over there. It's cheaper than Secrets Manager. Not that Secrets Manager is really expensive, but I don't need, unless I'm overlooking something, I don't need the features of Secrets Manager like rotation and stuff like that. So I just kind of realized it today as I was poking around with this. I thought that was a little odd. And then finally, we've got our role. And I'll show you what I tried to do here. Again, sort of like a little bit of pre-work here, trying to just wrap my head around a couple of these things because they're relatively new concepts. And I created a role. I called it my Slack data connector role or something like that. And as far as I can tell, I've got it set up correctly. But when I created this connector, I couldn't select. Oh, I think I might have just answered my own question, right? See this? This is a service role. So anyways, I went through CloudFormation and created an IAM role that I thought we could use as part of our Slack test data connector, and it doesn't show up in the list. So I said, okay, you go ahead and create a role. Okay. So maybe we can fiddle around with that bit and see what happens. And then finally, there's some configuration choices you need to make on what you want this to sync. So I selected public, private, and group messages. I didn't specify any specific channels. When did I want it to start syncing from? I just selected a random date. Specific channels. Do we want to include messages from bots, archived messages, and then you've got inclusion and exclusion. So pretty basic stuff. And I did a full sync and run on demand. Okay. And as I mentioned, if I go back over here, it's now finished. So it went through and grabbed 1,500 messages. It added 1,300 of them, and it failed on 163. So if we go over to CloudWatch, and we'll run this query here. Okay, so it's going through and it's doing a bunch of things, and see if I can find one of the error messages. To me, it looked like the error messages, and I have to look in the documentation to be absolutely sure of this, but it looked like that it had crawled messages in Slack that were from users that no longer exist in our Slack workspace. And what was happening is, as it was trying to index those, it was throwing errors saying, hey, this user doesn't exist anymore, so we won't index it. It's kind of what I thought. Actually, I'll show you. You can go here, and if you click on errors, it takes you to CloudWatch, and you can run. If we go here, you'll notice right here, right? Log level is error or is present error code, and we'll run this query, and this will just filter out this stuff that I have errors. See this here? Oh, that's an internal error. I don't know what that one was. Let me see if I can find one. Oh, look at that. It's pulling an image in, which isn't supported. I won't be able to find it now that I want it, right? Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'm assuming what it's trying to do here is it grabbed a message, and it's trying to relate that message back to a user, and we've done a little bit of cleanup in our Slack channel. So the only thing I can think of is that it had no way to map this user back. That user doesn't exist in Slack anymore, so it threw an error. That's the only thing I can think of. Okay. Now, if we go to demo, and we scroll down to web experience, and we go to deployed URL, here we go. Now, here's the thing that I was thinking is how. Okay, so we've got all of our website data, and we've got data from Slack as of February 1st. I think I selected. What kind of query could I come up with that we could use to verify something in Slack? Okay, so let's try it like this. A lot of times we share articles in Slack about, AWS news releases and things like that, new services. So I wonder if we could just do something like, now I'm going to be a little weird about this. What we're going to do, because I've never queried this before, and I don't know exactly what it's going to display. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip all of you back to PyCharm, and I'm going to run this query. Not that we have some sort of top secret data in here, but I'm not quite sure I know what to expect, whether it even works or not. Yeah, okay, so it did return something, but the source info is still our blog. So you can see here, new service features according to our source data. No other documents in the source data specific. This is really interesting because it's saying that on our blog, Oh, you know what this is pulling? These are points from the podcast. So on Friday afternoons, we do a sort of a weekly wrap up, and we talk about AWS features and things like that. It's funny that it's pulling off the main blog page here as the reference, but I bet you if we were to dig down and look for these are probably bullet points that we put in the show notes that said about some of the AWS news releases that we had come across. So that's not going to do it. What else could we ask? Like we can't ask it for information about a specific person or anything like that because that's not really what we're supposed to be using this for. I can't think of a good question that we could ask it that would help us verify that we're getting Slack information or information from Slack. Let's do... Isn't that funny? I really... Oh, I've still got this window size messed up, don't I? Can I resize this a bit? There you go. Now you can... There you go. That's better. I don't know why this thing is... I thought I had this fixed, but obviously not. That's not too bad. You can mostly see it. What else could I ask it? I'm trying to think about recent conversations or context of a conversation that we've had in Slack recently, for the last couple days even. It's amazing how quickly you forget. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll flip you back over to PyCharm here. And let's just go... I asked it about some implementation info about a product that we've used recently. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to read this before, just in case, because I am gathering information across our entire Slack workspace, which includes conversations we're having with customers, because we include those customers in there. And this is a good example of where the identity crawler would be really important. Let me show you what it just came up with. I won't show you the source here, but I verified that the source is in fact coming from a conversation in Slack. And let me just go back over here, right? So you can see here, my question is, tell me about a recent implementation of EKS. We've been working on an implementation. So we've got a customer of ours has asked us to evaluate their current implementation of EKS, which was done by a third-party vendor, right? So a lot of times we'll go in and we'll do reviews of things for customers. And you can see here, looks like a snippet of a conversation that was happening about a recent implementation of EKS. And you can see our notes here back to that customer via Slack, talking about some of the things. It's not a complete list. As soon as I saw this come up, I remembered what it was. But it's a partial snapshot of that conversation that we were having about some of the things that needed to be changed in that implementation. And this is, in fact, coming from Slack. So let me try one other thing, and then we'll change gears. So I'm going to flip you back over here, and we'll do... So I just asked it to tell me about any recent security recommendations for an AWS project. And again, I'm sort of triggered my memory of a couple conversations that have been happening. So let's see what it does. Again, it pulled up a bunch of info, and let me check the sources. Actually, in this case, it pulled all this from our website. So here, I'll show you. Well, we know it works. If we go back to Firefox, you can see here, right? Following security recommendations can be found for an AWS project according to source data. And then all of our source data is actually going back to the website. So this is our original crawler, but it works. So I can see on the previous source that's coming from a conversation with a customer. Really kind of interesting that you can just ask it these generic questions, and it's going through now multiple data sources and trying to formulate an appropriate response for what we're asking it. It's kind of neat. Okay. Let's change gears. And I'll show you, if we go back over to PyCharm again. Okay. So we did this. We did this manually. What I'd like to do before we get in here is I'm going to create, do we want to do this again? I'm wondering if we can, let me show you the identity crawler piece. Let me show you this. We'll flip back to the documentation. Okay. So this is what I followed earlier today. And if we go to the prereqs, this is the part that I built out before the stream. So we needed to create a Slack bot, or create a Slack application, I guess, and make sure that either we had a bot user OAuth token or a Slack user OAuth token. And we need that information. We put that, that's what ended up in the secrets manager config. Okay. We needed to get our Slack team ID, and then I went through in the Slack app and added all of these user permissions for the user scope and all of these permissions for the bot scope. The one thing that I ran into, I went through all of this and I got a very nondescript error. It just said something about, I think I got a screenshot of it. It said something, this is a Slack error. Something went wrong, team not authorized. And it was when I was adding in the user token scope piece. So what I ended up having to do, and it was a total RTFM moment, it's not clear in the documentation, unless it's somewhere else and I just didn't notice it, but it doesn't appear to be in the documentation. This last thing right here, audit logs read, if you don't have, I'm trying to remember what it's called now, there's various levels of licensing in Slack, and I think it's called, excuse me, Enterprise Grid. This is valid only if you have an Enterprise Grid subscription, which we do not. So I went through and added all these, and I noticed it after the fact when I was trying to figure out what went wrong, that it does clearly say in Slack that this token scope is available only to Enterprise Grid supporters or subscriptions, but it's actually quite hard or quite easy to miss. So just a quick note here, this might trip you up depending on your subscription. All I did was once I realized what it was I was doing, I just removed that and was able to install the application into our Slack channel, into our Slack workspace. Okay. And then down here, this is what I started to read about the IAM roles. We'll come back to that. And then see this thing here, ACL crawling. So what it's doing is when it crawls Slack, and it looks like a bunch of connectors are like this. In this case, when it's crawling Slack, you'll notice that it pulls in ACL information related to that document that provides it with user or group information for your Slack instance. Okay, this is what I turned off. So this means here, essentially what's happening is because I turned this off, that means anybody that would be able to access Q then could, in theory, access any data, right, that's in our, I'm going to call it a repository, but it's not really, an index, there we go. In our Q business index, it would be able to access anything. If I turned this on, then it would look for any ACL, access control list information associated to that document, a user or group information, and it would use that to determine whether or not I could see it. Okay, so you can see here what happens is we map Slack user IDs, okay, on the messages in the channels, and this will help us control who can see what. Okay, so for our use case, I didn't do that today. And this is the identity crawler. Okay. So same idea. The identity crawler is actually used by a number of the different connectors as far as I can tell. And it again is the actual component that's trying to gather up any ACL information that's related to the documents that your data connectors in Amazon Q are essentially crawling and then attempting to index. And what I thought we could do is I'll show you what I did in the Slack connector today. I did it through the management console because, again, I haven't really wrapped my head around the API calls for this. There is a fairly extensive configuration document. It's a JSON document that you have to include in those API calls. And I just haven't had enough time to kind of work my way through that and at least do some basic tests to understand or try to get it to work before I fumble around too much on the Twitch broadcast. So I'll show you this. It's literally a button you can click, but I wasn't quite sure if you did that, if you had to make other choices. So I'll just show you where that was. Okay. So there's that. And then, so the user store is, again, I'm trying to remember all the documentation I've been reading. There's a fair bit of it. The user store is like a built-in user directory that comes along with Q, and it would be used in the event that you do have those ACLs in place, so it knows who I am and what I have access to. Okay, so let me just show you this, and I'm sure we can do this programmatically, but I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. So let's go back to Q here, and I'm just going to add another data source, and we're going to find Slack. Okay, and I've got, let's do this, another Slack test, and we need our workspace ID. Okay, and then I'll leave this on. This is what I disabled before. And I created our secrets, so I just called it a Slack test, no VPC. Here's our identity crawler, and then the role. Now you'll notice, this is what I didn't quite understand. I think what's happening, you'll notice here, these are all service roles. Now these aren't. Okay, this might just simply be a case of not having enough patience. This is the role that I created through CloudFormation. And maybe it was just the fact that I had the data source configuration window opened up prior to creating the role, so it didn't refresh or anything like that. So this is the one that came from CloudFormation. I'm going to do this though, just to make sure it gets all the permissions. I'm going to create a new service role, and then again, we'll do all channels this time. And when do we want to crawl from? I'll say Feb 1st again, and we'll just do a full sync, and we'll do on demand. Okay. So now if we say add data source, takes a little bit of time. What we should see here is another connector, right? I'll have to do more reading on the user store and the ACL piece. Okay, that's good. There we go. Okay. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, if we scroll down, oh, look at that, it doesn't show you. Let me do it again. Here. I won't run that. Actually, yeah, let's run this. So I'm going to say sync now, and we'll see what that does. But I wanted to show you the one last little piece at the bottom of the screen. If we go to Slack, we won't do any of this. Scroll down. These are the field maps. So there's the Slack field name. This is the field name that gets mapped in the index. This is the Q Business Index. And there's 2 pages of stuff here. So what else do we have? Created, last message ID, channel ID. Okay, so that's what it's pulling in. Okay, great. So what we could do then, since my little bit of CloudFormation code actually did work, I think what we'll do is we'll have a look at the role that I created already and see if we want to add some other things out, because we've got those three other roles, right? The app role, it's the role associated with the Q business application itself. Then we've got a data connector role. I wonder if we probably, in my brain, it makes more sense to create individual data connector roles. So we'd have a data connector role for our web crawler, and then every other data connector that we might create, because I would assume that those different data connectors are going to have potentially different permissions that might be required on the AWS side. Okay. And then we've got the web experience role. So maybe we can get all that done programmatically today, and then we'll go from there. All right. So let me pull up the doc that I started to build here. All right. So again, let me just resize this. Okay, try this again. One day I'll get this sorted out so it does what I want. Okay, so that's good. And then let's go back over here. And let me just walk you through this. So if you've watched these streams before, you've seen a template that looks very similar to this probably 100 times. We've got a simple CF template to create some IAM resources, and we've got the standard parameters that we always use: environment set to development, and a couple allowed values, the owner and the owner email. And then what I did for my test today was I just created a data source role, which I think will change the name of that, make it more specific. Role definition, and in this case we're allowing the Q business service to assume it. And then I chopped this down a bit from what was in the documentation, and I did that because I thought maybe I had a typo in here that was stopping the role from showing as available for use. Okay, so I think we'll add that back. And then I read the documentation, and I created this based on what was in the doc with a few modifications. I removed some of the resources just for testing, so we might add those back. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go like this. We're going to say Q business application role. We need a Q, let's do this, data collector roles. We need a web collector. We need a Slack collector. And we need a Jira collector. Okay. This is the Slack collector right here. So we'll just grab this. And let's just change this. We're going to call it Slack data collector role. And that is going to break this. Okay. So that's that. Let's fix this condition. In the condition, they also had... Actually, no, this condition is fine. What we've got is we're saying the Q business service can assume this role, but only if the source account is our account and only if the ARN matches this application. I changed this to star. I think in the documentation, they had a substitution in here for the Q business application ARN, the full ARN, but I just said let any application in this account let Q business in this account from any application assume this role, maybe is a better way to say it. Okay. And then I think we need to change these too. Let's shorten these up. So we'll just call it Slack data collector managed policy. That's maybe a little better than what I did here. Okay. We've got some basic stuff, batch puts, batch deletes for our application, and then we've got puts, gets. Okay, this is what I changed. So let's see if we can find this in the documentation, because I thought I just had a typo or something. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Okay, so if we go back a couple pages here, okay, we can go to create an IAM role, and then there's a bunch of different things here. How did I find this now? Okay, so this is our least privilege policy, which is what we have. And you see, this is what I took off. See these right here? So I'm going to take this, and we're going to see, yeah, I'll just grab these as placeholders rather than having to flip back and forth. So let's copy that. Go back to PyCharm, and they're going to go in here, right? So we'll just dump them there like that. It did a pretty good job. Pick that up, pick that up. I don't know if this is possible. Like if we do, never tried this before, index like that, right? And instead of putting the index ID, do a star. I don't know if it'll like that or not. And then we've got this one. So we'll just copy this. I don't know if we even need this or not, but index star, I don't think these will work. Slash data source star. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to run this through CloudFormation and just see what it does first. So let's save this. Push that, and then let me just see if I've got the pipeline open. I do have the pipeline open. All right, didn't fail immediately. Okay, so we made it through that. Now, if I'm remembering this, we made it this far when I was testing this before the stream. So here's business, change sets. So it is going to delete the role that we created before because I changed the logical name of it, so that's fine. And then it's going to add the new ones for us. So let's execute this and see what it does. So the policy was created successfully. This is our new one. So I guess it does like or allow us at least to do that. Where I had the slash star slash something slash star. Oh, you know, there's something else I wanted to do. Right now we're letting CloudFormation create the role names. And normally that's okay, but I'll show you. If we go here, well, actually, since we put Slack data collector role in there, it's pretty good. When I left it as just data collector or whatever it was, I kind of was thinking to myself, well, how do you know which one to pick? But now we've got, this is our logical identifier, right? So there's our stack name. This is the logical ID from the CloudFormation template, and then CloudFormation has just appended this to it. So this isn't too bad. And here's our trust relationship, that's fine. And then here's our new policy doc, and we've got a bunch of stars in there. The other thing we need for this, which isn't in here right now is this data collector needs to be able to get the secret information from Secrets Manager. And that is also in this documentation here. This is it here, okay? So this is what we need to add to allow it to get the secret value right here, okay? Now I'll show you the secret. I won't show you the secret, but I'll show you the secret name. So if we go to Secrets Manager, okay, when I created this manually, it appended Q Business Slack to the secret name for me. Let me see if I can show you that. If we go back over here, see here, if you go create a new secret, see what it says? Give your secret a name. The prefix Q Business Slack is added for you. I don't know if that's required or not, and I couldn't find it in the documentation. So I think what we'll do, let me try one other thing. If we go here, we go data sources. Let's do, the other one we were looking at was Jira. Where's Jira in the list? Here we go. What if we did the same thing? If we went here and said create a new one. Yeah, okay, so it's prefixing it with that. Okay. So what we'll do is, let me go back to PyCharm. Okay. And you'll notice that I started writing this out, and let's do the bare minimum just to see if we can get this to work first. Okay. And what I'm doing here is I'm just subbing, so there's Q Business Slack, and I'm just passing in the environment parameter value we set. So in our demos here, this will be dev. Okay. So pretty simple stuff there. Let me just check if I pull this document up, the CloudFormation documentation for this. Just give me a second. I want to see what else is required here before we try to push this, because otherwise, if we miss something, it'll end up not working for us. Just give me a sec. All right, so we need well, we don't need a description, but we've got one. Slack token used by Q Business. Let's do this, Q Business crawler. Okay, generate secret string. This is a structure that specifies how to generate a password to encrypt and store in the secret. We can't do that because we've got to get the token information from the bot creation, or the Slack app creation that we did, right? You can pass it a KMS key ID, where we're going to use that to encrypt the secret. If we don't pass that, then it will use an AWS managed key for us. I think for today, we'll just leave that alone to keep this as simple as we can. The name, which we've already got. Okay, that's fine. You can replicate your secrets between multiple regions. We won't do that here. We'll just leave it in we're operating in US East 1. Secret string. This is the text to encrypt and store in the secret. We recommend that you use a JSON structure of key value pairs to keep your secret. Key value pairs. Okay. To generate a random password, use this. If you omit both. Okay, so if we don't put generate secret string or secret string, it'll actually create the secret for us, but it will create an empty secret. Not ideal, but it will do the trick for what we want today, just to see it work. And then we've got our regular tags, right? That's good. Anything else that we need? Well, I think that's good. Oh, and we should get an output value for this. So let's do outputs, and what happens here if we get, ooh, look, it's populating it for us. Code Whisperer. Wow, look at that. So, okay, let's go through this. Export name. So ref Slack secret will give us the ARN, and then there's a get attribute which is the ID, which would also give us the ARN. So let's see here. This is hallucination. This doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. This doesn't. Okay, wow. All right, so we can just do, whoa, I went from one extreme to the other. Let's try that again. Slack secret. I'm gonna make this plural or singular, Slack secret, and this will be the Slack secret ARN. And we're gonna say ref, right? And then we'll just say export name. There we go. Okay. I usually make these lowercase. We'll do this. Okay. Perfect. And then what we'll do is we will add this to our super complicated deployment script. So we'll just go secrets deploy. We'll call this Q business secrets. This is, I'm going to shorten this name. So we'll just refactor this guy. Let's make it secrets. Don't need that. Okay, good. And then in here, we'll run the simple validation secrets. Okay, so let's commit this. Never fails. What did we do wrong? Invalid outputs type. Oh, woo. What did I do? Oh, it's not a type definition, it's a value definition. Oops. Okay. I have a little, so I was saying that last week, if you saw the stream or you watched the VOD after the fact, I messed my streaming setup up somehow. I don't know what I did to it. And I had to redo everything. And I have a little stream deck that I use to switch between the scenes. And because I basically had to create all the scenes again from scratch. If you've noticed, it's still not perfect. I'm not quite sure what I've done wrong. But regardless, my stream deck doesn't work anymore, because it doesn't have all the new scene names. And so I have to keep going back over to the streaming software and clicking to change the scene. You don't realize how reliant you get on some of these things until you can't use them anymore. Okay, so, I went to the wrong place. We were in the right place already. All right, so we fixed our output issue. If we go back over to CloudFormation, here's our secrets. And like it said, if we've done everything correctly here, it will create an empty secret for us, but at least we've got the shell that we need. Perfect, okay? And if we look at the resources and we go look at this guy, here it is. If we say retrieve secret value, there isn't one, okay? Perfect. So that's great. The other thing, what we'll do is we'll create, because we want to do the Jira piece too, what we'll do is we'll create an empty Jira secret as well. So let's go back over here and we'll just cut and paste, right? So this becomes Jira secret. Okay, and then we'll just output this as well. Right, okay, I won't push this. We'll do this all at once. So that's that part. That's pretty simple. What we have to add is the secret piece. And the thing that I can't quite figure out yet is, obviously I don't want to put my Jira secret or my Slack secret in my CloudFormation template, right? So what I did was I put the secrets in the CI configuration. And my thought is we could do something like, if I go to here, we could do something like, and I have to look the documentation up, I'm in the wrong spot still, here. I could do this, right? I could say CI, usually I preface this with CI so I know where it's coming from. So see what it's doing, it's auto-populating this for us. So I could say CI Slack secret. And what did I call this now? I wrote this down. Bear with me a sec. I'll double check which one we have to use, but I could do this, right? And then go CI Jira secret. And we'll do this. And then I can just pass it in by doing this, dash dash parameter overrides, and we'll say, perfect, just like that, okay? And if we go back here now, we can do, I already forget what I called them. Whoa, look at that. Code Whisperer sometimes gets a little overexcited. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So again, just some placeholders. I don't know if that actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put dummy values in here. Let me do it this way. It's not like it really matters at this point, but this way it's actually it's passing something into the template, and then I'll figure out how this works. What the challenge that I had today was I couldn't quite wrap my head around. In here we have to pass a string in, but then how do I substitute values into a string that has quotes in it? So I have to do a little more reading on that one to figure that out. But I think this is a pretty good placeholder for us for next go round. Why don't we write out the other roles that we need? Okay, so there's our Slack collector. Yeah, let's close that one down. So let's go through and have a look at the other roles that we need. Okay, so let's call this, wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? We'll double check this because I think in the documentation, actually we'll look at the role that was created for us when we created the application. We'll grab what it has here in the trust policy. Okay, so let's actually do that now. So if we find our Q Business app, this is the role that was originally created. So really all I want to do for the time being is check this. Yeah, and it looks exactly like the role we've already created. So if we flip back over to PyCharm, and what we'll do is just borrow from this. Where's our other role? Oh yeah, I shrunk it down. So this is exactly the same. So what did I copy? Version. Okay. This is obviously not great. So what we'll do And we'll borrow again, since the policy document's already created for us. We can find that here, right? So it's got CloudWatch put metrics. Okay, so we're going to do this. Copy. Grab all this. We'll just substitute over here. There it goes. Okay. Oh, look at that. Properties. Okay, that's pretty good. So we're just going to do it like this. And then we'll... That one looks fine up here. So we need to change a couple things. So we're going to say sub. Okay. And then this one we'll need a sub on as well. Okay, so that gets that, and then we can take this, go up here and do this. We'll do ref, that, and then we'll add a depends on, like that. So that's our, actually what we'll do is we'll stop here and we'll deploy these changes just to make sure. I don't want to make too many changes and then we've got a typo or something somewhere and I can't find it. So let's do this. We're gonna go see what I mean? So it's in our secrets, parameter name, Slack secret is not alphanumeric. Huh? So what was it complaining about? It actually didn't like the IAM stuff. It didn't like the... Oh, actually, IAM worked. It didn't like the placeholders we put in secrets. So it doesn't like this. Oh, sorry. So I'll do this. CI Slack secret like that. CI Jira secret. And then if we go back over here. Okay. Every time I go to switch the screens, I look down at the Stream Deck. Got some serious muscle memory happening there. Let's see how this one does. Okay, that's a little better. We at least made it through the validation phase now. IAM, and then we'll deploy the secrets piece first, just to see if it works. Okay, that's good. So let's go here. We should have a change set for this, which should have our new Jira secret, empty placeholder secret. And then down here, we should also have a change set. So this is adding our new managed policy and new application role. What I'm thinking is if we could get all of these set up, how do I want to do this? What I'm thinking is in our script, we can get, how would we do this? My thought was we could pull the ARNs somehow programmatically from the stacks before we actually try to create our application, because we need those ARNs for the Q business application role, the web experience, the application itself, the web experience config. I thought maybe we could figure out a way to make a CloudFormation API call or even a shell script call to get the ARN information back and then inject that into the scripts themselves. That might be kind of an interesting way to do it. So I'll show you what I mean. If we go here and we go to resources, so this right here, if we go and look at this, we need the ARN. You know, another thing we could do, it might be easier, because again, we're letting CloudFormation append those random characters to the end of this, and that's nice because it just keeps us from having to name everything. But in this case, if we named things specifically, then if we knew the structure of that name in our script, we could just create it. Maybe I'll do it that way instead. I'll show you what I mean. If we go back over here, and let me just pull up the role documentation here for CloudFormation. We could just use a role name definition. We could do this. Okay, so here's our role type properties. So just role name, yeah. So we could do this, role name. See, that's not too bad. We could do something like this instead. Q business application role, and then the environment, like that. And then we could take the same thing and do this down here, like this, and we could call it Slack collector role, like that. Okay, this will nuke everything we've already done, but that might be a better way to do it, because then in the script we can construct the ARN through variables that we pass into the script. That might be a better way to do it. Now the other thing we have to do is, as soon as we start hard coding or putting names into our IAM resources, if we go back here, we've got to change this from capability IAM to capability named IAM. Okay, so let's make that change first. Just to make sure we're on the right path for this. Yeah, so see, it's modifying it, but in order to change the attributes that we're asking it to change, it needs to replace them. So let's execute that. Since they're not in use anywhere, it doesn't really matter, right? So we gotta plug this in. Give me a sec. Okay, so that should work. We're in the cleanup phase, so that should be good. So that means, oh, I'm in the wrong project, so go here. So that means we've got an application role. Let's change this and say web crawler. Or let's actually, we'll call it a web crawler. We know what we mean. We've got a Slack, actually I'm going to change it, Slack connector role. Jira connector role. We'll call it a web crawler connector role. Okay, I think that's all of it. So for this, we wanted to create, at least for now, a Slack secret and a Jira secret. And we've at least done, we've got that sort of finished, right? We've got them created. We need to obviously actually get real secrets in it. That's fine. We've got the Slack connector role done. And we've got the application role done. Okay, that's good. Okay, so that's that. Do we add the actual? Yeah, okay, here's the permissions. That's for our application. If we flip back over to the console, we go to Q. Back to Q. So we've created this. So that's good. Hey, look, is this actually... Did I actually fire this off? Oh, look at that. Yeah, it did. It's syncing up. I didn't remember that we did that. Okay, so we've got that. What are we missing? When we create a retriever, or when we create our, this is our retriever, which in this case is we're using the Amazon Q retriever. Right? Essentially, this is our index. Okay. So remember, you've got two types of indexes you can use. You can use the native index, the built-in indexer, Q index. That's what we've done here. But you can also associate this to Kendra. We decided to use the built-in index or retriever because it's cheaper, right? It's included in the price, I think, as far as I recall. What Kendra has an additional cost, so we went down the let's call it the cost-effective path for a little POC. If we flip back to the actual Boto script that does this work, I just want to see here. Let's get rid of our list functions. All right, so here's our application, and that's the role ARN. Okay, so that's the one we created already. So we got that one covered. Index. So the index does not have an ARN. The retriever does not have an ARN. So then we need a. I thought the web experience had one. Isn't that weird? Okay, hang on. Let's go back to Firefox. So web experience. Yeah, it's funny. It does have one right here. Okay, so let's look this one up, and we can build this out as well. The trust relationship should look exactly the same. So we can start with the trust relationship. That's pretty basic. So let me pull up the other project and we'll just shrink these down. So this is what we need. So there's our web collector, Jira collector, or Slack, Jira. Oh, I forgot. We need Confluence. Wow, that's Code Whisperer amazes me all the time how it does this stuff. This is actually the web experience role. Okay, so we'll call it Q business web experience role. We'll fix this in a minute. All of this can stay the same. We want to change, yeah, that's fine. We want to change this, so we'll call it web experience, like that. And then let me just grab the permissions document here. I'll just get it switched into YAML. Give me a sec. Okay. So that's ready to go. Let's actually put this up here like this. Actually, why don't we just go like this? Right, and then I created the policy document already. We'll just do a few substitutions. Do the same down here. Oh, that's interesting. It's got decryption permissions. Well, that's really weird. It must have put this as a placeholder in the permissions doc. Let me go back over. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, look at that. So what it did was when it created this for us, it added this section right here. And this is providing it access to use a key for decryption. But this is just a placeholder. That should be a unique identifier for the key. And if I recall, if we go back over here, when we set this up, can we edit this? Yeah, I don't even remember it giving us an option for the key info. So I think what we'll do for that particular piece is we're going to take the KMS piece out. Up to this point, we've used the AWS managed keys rather than customer managed keys in an attempt to keep this as simple as we can to get started. So we're going to grab the giant logical ID there, and we're going to go back up to, where's my web experience? Right here. Right? Now this is going to be weird. This is just, I'm going to move this. Oops. Okay, because these are all our data collector roles down here. And up here are our application, like the Q business things themselves. So we'll put that at the top. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing here. Oh, I forgot. We didn't export these values either. So let's do... I don't really know if we'll really need these anywhere, but we'll do that. And then we're going to do the web experience role as well. Like that. Okay. So we'll say feature added additional. Yep, so there's the new Q business thing. The output changes that we made never show in the change set, so that's fine. We'll see them in the... what did we do wrong? Oh, I forgot the version doc. The version... Let me try this again. I forgot to specify the version of our managed policy document. So I'll just show you what I missed. The joys of cutting and pasting something. So see right here, I needed this line. So that should go policy doc version like that. I think that's should fix it for us. This failed because this is still in cleanup mode. So there we go. We have to wait for this to actually say rollback complete. I was a little too quick. It's funny how when you're waiting for this, it seems to take forever, but if I wasn't waiting, it would just immediately fix itself. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go back and look at our to-do list while we're waiting for CloudFormation to finish up. Right, so we're doing this guy. I'm going to reorder this again too because it just feels out of place. Right, that goes here. So that's that. Okay. Okay, so here I'll show you. If we go back to the console. So the console now says update rollback complete, and what I'll do is I'll just rerun this pipeline, the stage that failed right there, and that should generate our change set for us, assuming, there we go, create in progress. I was going to say assuming that nothing else is wrong. Okay, there's our Q business, or sorry, let me just double check. Yeah, web experience. Okay. All right, so we'll let that run. In the meantime, let's go back to Q Business and we'll have a look at the web crawler. So here's our original web crawler, and here's the role. I'm assuming the trust relationship will look like the other ones, and then permissions. So see, in this case, for our web crawler, it doesn't need S3 get permissions because we're not getting anything from a bucket. It doesn't need get secrets because in this case, we don't have any authentication requirements for our website. That's public, so we don't need that. Decryption, we don't need. This here is the only thing I think we need. This is going to actually allow us to push the documents into the index. Put group, create, delete group. This is more on the, I think if I'm remembering this correctly, this is identity store. Remember how we had the identity crawler? For this, again, it's a wide open public website. There is no limitation on what you can see, so we don't need that. I think really all we need is this little chunk of code right here. So I'm going to grab this. We'll put it in our JSON to YAML. And of course, that's not going to work. Let's try that again. Let's go copy JSON. Put the whole thing in here. And there we go. Okay, and we'll just cut the little piece out that we need. All right, so that's good. Let's go back to the editor. And we will create a web collector role, and I'm going to use this. We'll do this, and we'll call it our web data collector. This we'll get rid of for the time being. We'll paste that back in when we need, and the rest of this could all be the same except for this web collector. Okay, we have to change this, so we'll put a placeholder in here. We'll do this. And then up here, we'll do the same thing. How did I do yeah, I always forget that. I put the depends statement out here. And we'll just do to do, okay? Perfect. Put a space there. Okay, so there's our collector, And then we need here. And we're just going to take this whole thing and then we'll just slice it up. Not like that. Copy. So call this web data collector. And like I said, we don't need, if I just grab all of this, clean that right out, and then let me find, all we need, I think, is this. Okay, so there's our statement ID, allow, and then I'm going to put this on a new line. I think it'll read a little easier. Sub, and this is a crazy string like that. And we're going to do the same thing we've done throughout this. We're going to change that to AWS region. I see a spelling mistake there. I'll come back. Account ID. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to get rid of the application. We'll say allow it to go to all applications and allow it to write to all indexes. Okay, and then we can take this. Oops, wrong place, right? This one and just drop it there. Whoops, I need the ref. Like that. And then we can do ref like that. Oh, look what I've done here. I'll have to change that. So we're going to call this web data collector. Web data collector. This should be Slack data collector role. Okay. Perfect. Is this all we did? We just, yeah, okay. So we're going to say, whoops. What did we do wrong? Every depends on must be a string. Okay. I'll take your word for it. Let's go figure out what we did wrong. Too much cutting and pasting, I would assume. Or a tab in the wrong spot. So this is our manage policy, right? And then where's our depends on state? Oh, look what I did. It doesn't need to be a ref like that. Down here it needs to be a ref, yeah. Excuse me. All right, so there's I am. Let's go over here. Again, takes a bit of time just because we're watching it. Perfect. All right. So then back over here, find the right project. That gives us the web connector role. Okay, so let me just commit this. And really all we did was we didn't really make any changes to the application code tonight at all. Okay, perfect. Well, pretty good stream tonight, folks. As always, thank you very much for watching. I think we're going to call it here. Next week, we'll come back and see if we can get our Jira connector set up and running, and then have the entire thing running. Maybe we can figure out a little more scripting. But until that time, enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you. We'll get back to regular programming next week. We'll be back on Tuesday night instead of Wednesday. So we'll see you soon. Bye for now.